Hey, what's going on there, YouTube? Chris Bogart here with a rant article video. I've talked to Fraser Smith, one of the writers for Ultra Reality Games and a pro player, about putting this article on Ultra Reality page. I'm talking to the owner of the store, Jim, now about it. But the whole thing sparked when one of my team members, Brett Martinson, he is testing Dragon Roll with Splash Plant Engine, and basically what I said is, the deck shouldn't work out in theory. Like, I thought the only thing it would do is it has one tuner, which is Spore, obviously. That's a little high. That's fine. But the only level 1 tuner is Spore that you're adding, minus the 3 Veilers. And he said no, because there's like such things as Formula Synchron, and Shooting Star you can easily just make with Spore and Veiler. I just responded. I'm like, well, Formula doesn't do much, especially with a deck full of just level 7 Dragon Rulers. And essentially what I said, he's like all in all, in theory, it's testing on DN. It's a theory that I'm testing on DN at the moment. It's weird because it's working. I was like, I guess if it's working for you, then keep testing for Nats. And he responded this, which made me go on a rant. If I were to play for Nationals, I'd play straight up Ruler. It's a theory deck I thought was cool considering it was different. Come Nationals, it's going to be pretty much meta or get sacked by the meta. Frowny face. So, I mean, I wrote a comment. It's really long. And to give you I'll show you how long it is. Or I'll attempt to. So, this is hard to do with my camera. There's the post. It goes down there. So it's fairly long. Really long, actually. So, notifications. And I also posted this in the Zodiac Duelist page, so anyone who sees it can check there. But basically what I responded to that is, Nationals is definitely the prime time to show off your first thing I said actually to him was, that's definitely not true at all. Nationals is the prime time to show off your techs. If you guys never realize it, all the decks that always win just aren't, they aren't regular decks, you know? Like, for example, the one Nationals I went to was Pittsburgh, 2011, and it was my first Nats, obviously. It was my first year of competitive playing, actually. And the deck that won was TG Stun. Like, no one expected it. The net deckers never win. They do well. But the person who is innovative and test and is just good overall wins. They do better than those who can net deck because they know that... I'll just read this article. If you're playing something meta and if you have something splash crazy in that works, you just breeze at Nats and get recognition for it. Like, if you're... Generally, you don't want to play something at Nats that you haven't tested. I'm just going to keep reading. Screw it. Also, although... move this camera a little bit. Also, it's a great way to show off your innovation and get recognition for it if you do well with something that isn't meta. Nobody goes to Nats playing something they aren't comfortable with or know inside and out. If you're bringing something to Nats, you definitely should have tested it heavily previously. For example, if you were going to bring Battle and Boxer, if I were to bring Battle and Boxer to Nats, I would have known for a fact that can do well against meta decks and any meta decks actually. Quick story real quick. When I went to Nats, almost all the decks, 2011 Nats, keep in mind, it was plant format. Everyone was playing either plants or something anti-plants. You generally see it like that. It was a one format deck. Then it was like the only thing that was meta at the moment was plants. There was no other option really, unless it was really bad at that point. Plants just outran everything. This format we have two really meta decks, which are Prophecy and Dragon Rulers, and the anti-meta deck now would be Evil Swarm. Previous format would be Dino Rabbit against things such as Inzektor's Windups. Those are just examples. But I had to at least test it enough to know that it'd do well, and if I open consistent and play well. Like, you don't want to play a deck that's not consistent. if you're testing hands and say, oh, I went 2 and 2 because I opened the nuts twice, and I just ask you like, well, what did you open the other 2 times? I'm like, oh, absolute garbage. Well, that's not the deck you should be playing. You definitely want to make your decks consistent as you can make them. The more consistent a deck is, like if you win once, and you win consecutively, consistently, you know your deck's fine because a regional consists of Swiss rounds. You want to win consecutively and lose only to a bad chance, something like bad chance, offhanded, or just a rogue deck that's out of the blue. Like if someone wanted to go to Nats with, what's something retarded, Cloudian, Michael, if you're watching this video, definitely. I actually mentioned you in this article, but I mean, if you lose to something like Cloudian, like you're not going to expect it. You're obviously not prepared for such a thing. But the idea is, if you win or lose, you know you can at least. There was nothing you could do about it. You can be like, well, I could have drawn better and won. No, you made your deck as consistent as possible, and you know, hey, at least I lost because of reasonable losses and because my deck was consistent and it just wasn't as good as theirs, or they drew better, or like the deck's better. There's always decks that have better matchups. Like obviously, let's see, Evil Swarm, like has a better matchup against dragons, especially game 1. If you sack him game 1 and just beat him with a first turn Ophion, flip safe zone, what are they going to do? Game 2, they side against you and you side against them. If you lose, that's most likely like they side against you. But game 3, being able to go first again, generally you can win. If you win game 1 as Evil Swarm and playing against Dragon, you're most likely going to win the match. That's why in game 1, Dragons try as hard as they can to get rid of Ophion and win. They have to at least. There are bad players who don't understand that concept out there, but anyways, continuing with this. If you're going to play something that you don't know can do well, you're just like I wrote this and I kind of regret it. It's really mean to just say stuff like this that's wrong. You're just simply stupid. It's not sensible for you to go to an event and play a deck that you're just not comfortable with. Well, like I'll keep reading. Makes more sense here. Even if you're playing a deck that's non-meta and people refer to it as bad, like Robbie Cole says this all the time. He says, gadgets are a bad deck, but I do well because I know my deck and people don't know my deck. Like, and he's better than most people. Like, some people are just really bad at this game. They can't think. They just think like, oh, I'm playing a good deck, so I definitely should do well. Like, no, there are situations that arise that you cannot deal with because you just haven't played them. Like, what are you going to do when you're playing against Machina Gadget, Redox Machina Gadget, keep in mind, and you're a Dragon player? All of a sudden, they drop their Draco's Hack. You're like, oh shit, I'm going to try the Big Eye. But you don't recognize the fact they have backers. Machina Gadget deck just do that. They lure you, and they drop weird and indifferent creatures. Like, generally, the deck just drops a Fortress and deals with it. But the fact that Evil Swarm's a deck right now, the deck can't rely on that. They play 2 Fortress, generally. So, the idea is just drop a weird monster that they generally cannot deal with. Like, in the mirror match with Dracosack deal with, the only way you could do it was Dracosack. Or Big Eye, sorry. The only way you get rid of Dracosack, or a Dracosack on your opponent's side of the field is if you Big Eye it. But the Dragon matchup is less prepared for that, because they only have 3 Effect Valor and 3 Breakthrough Skill. And MST could easily get rid of a Breakthrough Skill, and there's only 3 Effect Valor in concept, and maxing obviously won't do anything for you. Now, the Machina Redox Gadget deck has many more answers. They play multiple traps, they play hand traps as well, and they're much more reactive to deal with the situation as a Big Eye, compared to a Dragon Mirror, where dealing with a Big Eye while you have a Dracosack is much more difficult. Honestly, if you're playing a deck that's non-meta and people refer to it as a bad deck, like people play Karakuri at my locals, and they still do well. If you know how to play the deck, you're comfortable with it, and you know the meta and how to play well, you'll do well. Like, Robbie Cole has given me this tip countless amount of times. You just play. You never know what your matchup will. You never know what your matchups will be, and you never know who you'll be playing against. There genuinely are people who think if they play a meta deck, an autopilot meta deck, for example, Dragon Ruler is very simple. You just use a variety of dragons, try not to overextend, and just make a Dracosack, and you let your opponent deal with it. When they deal with it, you do it again. The deck is very consistent at one thing: it puts monsters on the boards, and it can attack. It can do nothing else except for try to defend itself with some hand traps and breakthrough skill. But those aren't defensive, they just counteract it. It's like I'm trying to negate something, nullify something from happening, but if it happens, they're doomed. They have generally no outs to situations like that. If I were to drop an Abyssagaios in a Dragon match with back row they have a problem generally. If you know your deck better than your opponent, does, you have the overall advantage. Because generally you should know how Prophecy or Dragon or Evilswarm work and play around their moves and predict everything they can do and counteract it. Essentially, to be good at this game, it's like chess. You think moves ahead of your opponent. You have to know what to do, when to do it, and when you think of a move inside your head and generate that move. This move video is extraordinarily long, for the record. You think of the move and you do it. Now, what move you think of to do, it's... Alright, I'm just going to keep reading. I keep losing track. They most likely will not know how to play against something such as Karakuri with their certain deck, generally because they were too focused on testing against the meta and ordinary decks in their own testing phases. Generally, if you're testing, do you test against rogue decks like Karakuri and such? That's why I prefer to test online, on DevPro and Dueling Network. Not Dueling Network, definitely DevPro. Just because I know what I'm playing against real people, and I'm playing against multiple decks. They choose whatever deck they want to play, and I just play against it. It happens no matter what. And I get to test against everything generally. I also play a lot of decks, and knowing how every deck works, and Game 1 allows you to look at a lot of your opponent's deck generally, you can easily just say, oh, he's playing Karakuri this way, he's a very explosive player, so what I gotta do is set up a good defense system that he just can't pass. For example, Dracosac, it's hard to get around to Karakuri. Having the advantage of playing your opponents pretty much means you know what the most... the play you do is you think of the most powerful play that they can produce in their deck. For example, Prophecy can just go set Fate, set Wisdom, drop a Priestess or a Jalgan, and pass the turn with adding cards to their hand because of Judgment. Now, what you want to do is think of, before they could do that, if you're going first or they haven't got opportunity to do such a thing yet, you want to do a play that can either stop that play, one, or two, be able to counteract that play in a way that just, you think of the most powerful play, and you know you're ready for it. Think of the most powerful play and counteract it. Do something against that play that makes that play a lot less powerful than it was, and essentially, you got good. Think about your opponent's best opening hand, and play against that hand. If they did not open that perfect hand, then the idea is, you already know how to play against their perfect hand, they open an imperfect hand. For example, they open, 2 dead cards, and you're just like, well, crap, this matchup is a lot easier because I was prepared for something that was much more difficult and didn't have all the answers that you expected, but you have answers for what they expect. Or you have answers for what you expected, I guess. Play as if they open busted, and if they did, I already said this, play as if they were open busted. If they did, you're ready for it. Be ready for it. If they didn't, even better. You're most likely going to win at that stage. Yeah, how do I put this? Usually, when a good player, or genuine good player, plays in an event, such a big event such as Nationals, they will not go with just a net deck meta deck. They test themselves and know what's good and test. For example, our friend DJ, he played a Chainburn deck at a regional once, and he tested it. And what he did was, he realized that people sided out protection when he was playing Chainburn, obviously. So game 2, he sided in 3 Injection Fairy Lilies. He didn't do very well. It was a very good move because, they sided out Compulsories, they sided out Deep Prisons and Mirror Forces, and these Injection Fairy Lilies just got him free. They had no protection, and you had already a Chainburn engine that they could not deal with. When they flip a Royal Decree, what is the thing you could do if you're a Chainburn player? You can't do much. So what he decided to do was say, I'm going to throw Injection Fairy Lilies in. It's very difficult for them to deal with that because they sided out Monster Hate and removal, such as those. The game is extraordinarily easy if you play it from that standpoint. It's exactly why people such as Robbie Cole, Richard Zhao, one of my friends, he goes to local regionals. He consistently goes XO, X1 with heroes. He played his own Hero Beat Chaos Heroes build, and he's very good with it. Just because people don't know how to react. He just sets a back row, and you're like, oh, this is heroes? You attack, and what he does, he just MSTs yours back row after several turns of stalling, and drops a Trag. He has the perfect hand after that time, because you're sitting there wondering what to do. And he makes a big Tragodia, and you're like, oh crap, I can't deal with this right away. Especially with only one warning in the format. I'm definitely going to make a video. Oh, whoop. Keep all this in mind for Nats. Play something that you enjoy playing, and just know how to play meta decks. If you know how to play Dragon Roll, if you know how to play Prophecy, if you know how to play Evilswarm, you can counteract those decks very well. I know all three of the decks inside out. I know the best play that Dragon Ruler can make turn 1 is Draco sack 2 tokens, and maybe Super Rejuvenation 2 or 4, and have most likely 2 hand traps in hand, and maybe a Breakthrough skill. In my Redox Machina Gadget deck, what I do to counteract it is I MST the Breakthrough skill if they have one, and play around their hand trap. I summon Tin Plate, and if they Beta Valor, cool. Reveal Kage to Kage, special. Exceed into something, run over a token, set some back row. Generally, a compulsory would be down, so the Draco Sack is no longer a problem. At that point, they will try to make another one, and I have a second back row for that. Or next turn, I'll just draw, and then be able to OTK since they already use a hand trap. They max C, doesn't matter. What are they going to do? Tragodia? Most Dragon decks do not play Tragodia or a Swift Scarecrow main deck game 1. So I can steal game 1 easily. Game 2, I lose or not, I can side so heavily against them. I side 10 against Dragons. 10 or 8 or 10, I don't remember. So, game 2, like, they go first and they make a Draco Sack. If I can set my Gozen match and a compulsory, or make a monster that gets over the Draco Sack, they can't do anything for the rest of the game, practically. I can still game through game 2 by something sideboarded, or I could lose it and go to game 3, go first and set the Gozen match, appear around a wall. Cards that won't let them make a play at all unless they have the MST. If they do, I start at 8, like I said, so I could open 2 of them, and like Tin Plate and Gadget, or Kage to Kage Gadget, or Fortress Redox to make Draco Sack. It's very hard for your opponent to deal with such things if you win game 1. That's why game 1 is against Dragons is fairly so easy for me, because I know how to play the decks. Evil Swarm, that's so easy to get around. Like, I can just Maestro and kill it. My deck is based on all making level 4s. Dropping level 4s, making rank 4s. It's not based on rank 7s, though it can do that, which makes the Dragon Ruler matchup much easier. But against Prophecy, I generally lose against Prophecy unless I open well, which is Tin Plate, Gadget, Kage to Kage. It's not very hard to do. You can do it through your opponent opening mediocre, not being able to Judgment, draw, like search for special, search Priestess, search another spellbook. Usually that doesn't happen turn 1. It can happen turn 1, but if that happens turn 1, I'm really ill prepared for it, game 1 especially, unless I make a Shockmaster turn 1. But like, up-leading turns to that, I can go Gear Gigan X's and King of the Pharaoh Imps to search these pieces to my hand, and gadgets recur themselves. So essentially I can make a Shockmaster and steal a game 2 or game 1 from them, but it's generally a 50-50. It's like, I make Shockmaster, or I beat them down faster than they could kill me. The problem with Prophecy and Dragon Rulers is these guys can't win fast. They gain so much advantage, and they get all these pluses, but they can't manage to mumble up enough monsters and enough attack points to run over everything you have that you've produced in those turns they've given you and attack you for 8,000. That's the reason why I don't play Solemn Judgment at the moment. If you cut your life points in half, that makes it so much easier for your opponent to win. And I never do Solemn Warning until a last resort, until I know I have to. And generally, it's just do analysis and skills, just thinking like, okay, well, they have 2 in hand. I'm definitely going to warn against Draco Sack. They can't do anything. And if they can, well, shit. Awesome. You suck. But life points used to not matter. Card advantage used to be the biggest thing. But that was different. It was back then in such things like wind up hand loop. Like, life points didn't matter because you would lose due to the fact that you cannot have a hand. Decks back then didn't only plus, but they negged you so much. Executors popped your whole field, and they plus themselves. That's not just a +5 for them, it's a +5 for them and a -4 for you, generally speaking. So, in reality, it's just a +9 for them. That's why you would scoop the game or lose very quickly, because you're losing as much advantage as they're gaining. The decks, Prophecy can't do that as much right now. They only have 3 Fate, and they can banish 3 cards, in theory. Like, at a minimum. Not a minimum, but they can banish 3 cards, and most decks don't even play Priestess anymore. And I play 2 in my list, so Priestess and a bunch of Star Hall counters is the only way they could win. It's very easy to get rid of Star Hall. With MST, for example, look what they could search. Great, you search a Priestess. That does nothing to a Draco Sack I have in the field. If you don't have a Fate, and I flip an Iron Wall, a Priestess does nothing for you. The concept is, throughout this whole video, just know your deck, know your opponent's deck, know your best play, know their best play, and make sure that your best play is better than their best play. Counteract their plays. That's why I play Redox Machina Gadget right now, because it has a very good game 1 against Dragons and Evil Swarm, and has a good game 1 against Prophecy, but game 2, I could side against all those decks fairly easily. Like, it's unbelievable. yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoy, comment, subscribe. If this video is extraordinarily long, but I wanted to get that off my chest. It's a long video, and it really was a lot of information. Like, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something as well. Like, I definitely thought it was one of my more bright moments. But that's pretty much it. We guys enjoy, comment, subscribe, and realize that all this. Keep in mind everything I'm saying is you have to be fairly good, somewhat good at the game. You have to give things thought and time. Like, read Alter Reality's article, specifically Fraser Smith's When to Scoop article. That's very important because time limit is extraordinarly relevant. Like, if you know the moves you have to make in your deck against a certain situation on your opponent's side of the field, for example, when my opponent has a Dragon secondary side of the field, I know exactly what I have to do. I have to my stroke and pop it with some method or use some trap card on it, and gain advantage through Gear Gyga X's and Kagito Kage's, stop my opponent from gaining advantage from making Dragon Sacks or Big Eyes. That's my game plan. The point of you memorizing certain plays in certain positions of board states is that you cut down time. If you don't have to think and you know a move automatically in your mind, you don't have to make that move. You don't have to think about that move, and just do it because it's happened frequently over again through abundance of testing. Cutting down time means you have more time for game 2 and 3, and more time to sideboard and think about their play style. I assume everyone that's going to Nats and has their invite is good enough to be able to manage such things. And also comes down to luck to draw. I think I mentioned this slightly. You never know who you're playing against and what decks you're playing against. That's why if you play something like Battling Boxer, Karakuri, or Redox Machina Gadget, you never know what your matchups are going to be. You could say, well, previous events have shown top 8, 4 of them were Dragon Rulers, 3 of them were Prophecy, and 1 of them was Evil Sword. Say, that's great. That's a top 8 from another event. This is totally different. It's almost practically luck of the draw what your records and who you play against. And who you play against is important as well. Because intellectually, you could just be, like, you could be just more prepared than that person in general. Like, some people test rigorously. Like, I don't test that rigorously, but I know what I'm doing to a much fairer extent. That's why I can do so well with such rogue decks and dumb things and budget decks. And I think that's the main succession of my channel. Like, I appeal to the budget player. Because, I mean, I have money. Most of the time. Like, my family is pretty, like, upper middle class. It's just the fact that I don't want to spend money on a card game. I'm just trying to have fun. But when you are going to a higher competitive level, and you do want to, like, do well, just use your intellect and just use your gut. Sometimes, generally, like, this game is a matter of luck. Not too much luck that it deprives the skill of the game, but just enough so it matters. Just go to an event, have fun, I guess. Do well. What I'm trying to say is just, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is just enjoy the deck you're playing. Don't go to an event unprepared and playing a deck that you're not comfortable with or you just don't know how to play. And especially don't go to an event not knowing what other decks do. If you're going to Nationals not knowing how to play against Dragon Ruler, you're going to have a bad time. Like a really bad time. You're going to lose, most likely, unless you really are lucky or just like are intelligent enough to think of how to play out of that spot very quickly, which most people are not. I do not always give benefit of the doubt. And, like, you're spending a lot of money on your deck, sometimes, but especially, like, the time to travel there, the time you're spending playing there, gas, whatever you're going to get there to, all that money is, like, spent. I'm spending $500 to get there, hotel, and finish my deck, and I'm not going to waste that $500 doing bad. If you are not prepared, and you do not take this seriously, you're not going to have fun. You're going to lose. You're not going to make day 2, most likely. Like, some people don't make day 2. It's just how it happens. But if you're ill-prepared, and you do bad, you're just going to lose, and you're not going to enjoy your time. Maybe you will enjoy a little bit of it, hanging out with friends and such, but you're not going to enjoy your time doing what you came there to do. Play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's what the whole point was. This video is already way too long. I'm just going to cut it short here. If you guys enjoyed, comment, subscribe. If you thought the video was good, give it a thumbs up. I think it's one of the better of my videos. I've also been on a lack of videos recently. Not so many videos up at the moment. Or not like as much as I used to. I used to be able to upload 4 videos a day, but now I'm busy. It's that season. I'm testing. And there's not as much to do or say. But I'm in need of a Big Eye and Dragon Sack for that. So if you have them for sale, $150 for both. I think is my number. Should be like that. I don't know. That's pretty much it. Videos are already really long. I said it like 10 times. I gotta go back to work anyways. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thumbs up, comment what your thoughts are. I want to see comments that fill up the YouTube character limit because it is such a big topic. That's why I took so much time on it, and I let everything out on the table. I didn't even want to make this in parts because I knew I was going to forget something. I probably am forgetting something still. But yeah, it's going to end there. Adios, YouTube.